Hi, before we get into this video, I need to have a bit of a disclaimer. I started working on this video last spring. I started working on this video last year during spring. It is now early autumn. At the time of recording this, I don't know how much longer it's gonna be delayed. But I liked the video how it was, and I didn't want to change some of the more dating parts. So you will have it as it is. Just put yourself in the mind of 2024 May to June. Or just pretend you're not watching this right as it comes out. If you are. If you know anything about me, which most likely you do not, since I'm not very active on YouTube at all, you know that I'm big into my original characters. I have so many. Like, too many to count. Just look at this. This is just for one story. It's excessive, I know. I'm aware. But it's just so fun. I love making characters. Though, I definitely have not properly designed the vast majority of the characters belonging to those names that just flew by the screen. Simply just because there are too many and I burn out easily as is. In fact, this whole video idea is very intimidating to me. But summertime is approaching and I suddenly have a lot of time on my hands. Speaking of the video idea, what actually is it? If you've recently watched Emma Artley or perhaps Baggy Bleach, who also did this challenge recently, you might recognize the title of this video. And if you haven't, you should definitely check out their videos. They're great. After you watch mine, that is. I mean, you're already here. Might as well. What we're gonna do today is assign a few new characters based on what comes up when I search different things on Pinterest, as well as other random generator websites. All of which will be credited in the description, along with Emma's original video and Baggy Bleach's attempt at the challenge, which both helped inspire my own attempt. Emma and Baggy Bleach both did 3 characters, but I've decided to make 4. This is partly because I hate myself and want to see myself suffer, and partly because the narrative I started to build felt empty without the 4 contribution. But mostly because I don't know when to quit. But let's start where all good stories start. Someplace, sometime. The where and the when. Emma made this neat little graphic that we will be using today, which explains the gist of it. As you can see, we'll start with our setting. This is where I hit my first hurdle. What we've got is a wagon Montmartre, powered by steam and clockwork machines in the Wild West. This gives us quite a lot to work with immediately. We've got a location, a style, as well as a relative time frame. Since we're supposed to roll for a year, I decided to roll for a year within the Wild West era. I thought that would be a good compromise. Problem solved. But the second problem is, well, I've designed so many 19th century designs lately, and was really quite excited to do this challenge or to, do something different. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring myself to re-roll it. I could not possibly jeopardize the integrity of the challenge. Yet. It's too early in the video for that, we'll get to that eventually. So, I decided to stick with it, because steampunk is cool as hell, and I haven't really done anything blatantly America-inspired before. That being said, I'm not entirely sure what a Montmartre is. All I could find that was vaguely related to wagons or steam-powered entities was this cute French train. God. Train de Le Petit Train de Montmartre. And you know what? I can do something with this. Then we also rolled autumn, not that it will make all that big a difference in the desert, but still. And with all that established, I think we're ready to finally talk about our cast. I started with looking up an album cover to determine the gender of our first character, and ended up with a woman. Then I searched for a complexion. I already had this one saved to my people pinboard. That sounds really quite morbid, but anyway, I was very happy with it. Then we got our body type. Easy enough. When it came to hair and clothes, I made sure to add a year to at least have a chance at getting something somewhat historically accurate. And I do love the hair we got. As for the clothes, I probably should have added Wild West or something in there because, spoiler, everything we got was quite fancy, which created a bit of a logistics problem for me. I was unsure about which to choose for accessories since the first picture is quite muddled, but I ended up just adding both the first and the second one for good measure. Then I decided to pull up a number generator for my color palette. Unsure why at this point in time. I did that though, and with that, we got our references done. For a bit of extra guidance, I also decided to bring the good old trusty number generator back and randomize an age for the character. No idea why I decided to cap it at 45. I robbed us all of the Wild West grandma, and for that I am so sorry. Anyhow, we've also rolled for personality, and I love this website so much. Here's what we got. Number 1 is always telling jokes. Despite never having learned basic math, she's good at solving puzzles and connecting abstract ideas quickly in her mind. She also has a habit of stealing minor things from people sometimes. Things they wouldn't really miss or notice. Nothing of importance, because she's not stealing for the objects, but rather for the action of stealing itself, for the thrill. She also frequently gets into debates or discourse with others. She craves both novelty and security, and is constantly struggling with trying to find a balance between always seeking out new things, places and people, and settling down with what she currently has. She's afraid of missing out on better opportunities if she stays in place, but also equally afraid of losing what she already has if she does decide to leave. Well done! Such a personality deserves a fitting name. And the name the hands of fate delivered upon her was Joy Prince. Ah yes, another woman. Other people who have done this challenge made it a rule so that the photo for the skin needs to show a full face, which, retrospectively, was a good call. I therefore do end up changing the skin, you'll see. It doesn't differ much though. The rest of the process is similar enough, so I might as well tell you about her personality while we get her pictures for the reference sheet. Number 2 spends most of her time playing games or visiting the local library. She also speaks quietly, so quietly she's practically whispering, if even that. Still, she's very durable and adaptable, and can make do in nearly any situation. But she also feels inherently entitled to special treatment, and is somewhat self-righteous. She's generally afraid of confronting any negative traits, or acknowledge that she may be incorrect, or be doing something harmful to others, since she has a very strict moral code and standards of how she wants to see herself. Because of that, she often tends to ignore truths and is always in denial about everything about herself that doesn't fit her already established self-narrative. So, there you have it. Her personality and a reference sheet. And of course, we rolled her age and her name. So that, my friends, is Hilda Haley. I tried to search up slightly different prompts for all the characters, just to give us a chance at different outcomes and pictures. But once more, we've got ourselves a girl. I also liberally used the number generator when the previously mentioned strategy failed me. Number 3 mourns the fact that she never truly had a childhood. She also always smells good, with very strong perfume. Too strong, really, as it gives the people around her headaches after a while. She likes shopping and can be very agile. She also cannot stand to be alone with her thoughts and needs to be occupied by something at all times, even if it's harmful. She'd rather hang out with people she hates or do something destructive that makes her upset than have to spend time alone. She can get so desperate that she doesn't care what she has to do as long as she's always preoccupied with some sort of external distraction. And with that, we ended up with this reference sheet. We also determined her age, and that's Janelle Adams for you. Now, I could have stopped here, but I just couldn't really place these people, so I decided to take a gamble. And with that, as a rather late addition, came our 4th character to be. This time, we actually got a man. I love women, alright, but perhaps what we needed was a diversity hire. For the face, we got what I'm like 70% sure is a Chinese man. This actually made me so excited because that very easily makes sense historically, as a lot of Chinese people immigrated to America in search of gold in the 1800s. Many were then employed in the rather abusive railroad industry, which does tie wonderfully into our setting. My excitement of historical accuracy died immediately though as we landed on this hairstyle. Does this look 19th century to you? No. I decided to simply choose the next one because I couldn't. The clothes aren't really historically accurate either, but at this point I didn't really care. It was good enough, I decided. I also decided that we didn't have enough Wild West in our Wild West crew, so I kind of meddled with this accessory somewhat too. But it's okay. It's all good. I did up adding the clock anyways. Calm down, it's fine. We solved it. So, yeah. One color palette later, and this is the finished collage. I rolled for age, then randomized his personality. Number 4 can never get names of things right. It's always mixing up different titles of things and calling people 10 different variations of sounds that are vaguely related to their name, but are still not their actual name. I also decided to re-roll his hobby, as movies aren't really relevant in this time and location. So, instead he is a collector of various living insects and has various bug habitats sprawled out over his entire living space. He does also really good animal impressions, but he also holds onto grudges like lifelines, can hide things really well. He needs to be in control at all times and is so afraid of feeling vulnerable or weak to the point of it controlling his life. This causes him to not trust or rely on people, even when it will be in both their best interest to do so. He also refuses to let himself create attachments, making him push people away, while simultaneously being bitter about his loneliness. He's very much obsessed with the perception of him as powerful and strong. So that, my friends, is the basis of Dale Kane. Just like that, the groundwork is done. So, sit back, grab a drink and a snack, and enjoy Turning Cogs of Candor. During her first and final pregnancy, Mrs. Hall and her husband found themselves traveling from Nevada to California through Death Valley. It was the autumn of 1852, near the end of the gold rush, and Mrs. Hall was so unbelievably thirsty. But the water they carried tasted abhorrent to her. After squabbling about it for a while, the couple passed by a small body of water in the middle of the desert. She asked her husband to slow down their wagon so she could get herself a drink, and as she lowered her cupped hands into the puddle, a voice seemed to whisper warnings in the rolling sand. It advised her not to drink the water, that she could pass undisturbed if only she returned the favor. Mrs. Hall, tired, thirsty, and warm, did not listen. She drank it all, and let the liquid run through her, cooling her down and rejuvenating her. No water had ever tasted so good, nor would any other outdo it. The sand grumbled as it tumbled down the mountains. It promised drought. It promised erosion. The threats fell on deaf ears. Janelle has barely any memories of her father. Shortly after her birth, he caught a disease he never managed to recover from, and so he spent her entire toddlerhood bedridden until he eventually passed away. Janelle's mother never let her forget the fact, as, according to her, it was all Janelle's fault. Janelle herself was born with blackened fingertips and toes, despite having perfectly good circulation, and it only seemed to continue to branch further along her extremities with age, without any clear cause. Janelle didn't have very many childhood friends. They all seemed to get sick and withdraw, sooner or later, as did animals she pat, and neighbors whose hands she shook. Her mother became increasingly worried about her situation. She had already carried her for 9 months and nursed her after all. Whatever poison hid behind Janelle's skin surely originated within the one who bore her, and it was only a matter of time before the neighbors connected the dots. Mrs. Hall never showed any symptoms akin to her daughter's, though. Hers mostly stayed internal, leaving nothing but a bitter taste in her mouth and a heavy weight on her brow. She kept Janelle mostly hidden, ashamed and scared of what she might do to the last remains of her reputation. And with the loss of her husband, Mrs. Hall was more than eager to occupy Janelle with all the chores of a housekeeper as soon as possible, so that she may spend her time securing the roof over their head. She was always eager to make Janelle useful. So when a wealthy young man passing by caught a glimpse of Janelle through the window and decided he must marry her, and was more than willing to pay Mrs. Hall for the loss of Janelle's labor, she didn't need much convincing. Mrs. Hall clad her 19-year-old daughter in gloves, covering up her darkened hands.
and made Janelle vow not to remove them around her future husband. Janelle took that to heart and religiously wore her gloves, both in public and private. Janelle and Mr. Adams contradicted wherever they possibly could, in so many ways, and especially as time went on. He reminded her more and more of her mother, cold and constricting. But she was terrified of being alone. That was the future her mother had plastered in her head. Janelle living and dying alone. Her disease needed her to keep people at a distance, or robbed her of those she held close. Either way, she got no one. She decided she'd rather have people briefly and interchangeably than never at all, no matter how that may come across to others. And perhaps the loss would be lesser if it wasn't a soulmate she lost. Things were ideal in the very beginning, before Janelle's isolated nature got on her husband's nerves, and before he began to wither. As he grew weak, he too grew bitter. The fleeting of his strength and his health, plus the eventual realization that Janelle would never bear children, fueled his irritability. Janelle did her best to humor him, to keep him with her, because in the end, he was the only one she had, and she desperately wanted to keep him because of it. She ached for closeness, despite the fact that he paled under her touch. And after 14 years of marriage, Mr. Adams finally passed away. Janelle left her house the morning after and wandered aimlessly into the town for the first time in what felt like eons. As she finally returned to the empty house, she did so carrying half a new wardrobe. Janelle quickly rejoined society. She met Hilda, and they became fast friends. In Janelle's life, people were always screaming and shouting at her. She never had a lot of room to take up space herself. She was always squished between people. Hilda, soft-spoken as she was, allowed Janelle to take up space and find her own voice. Hilda is the daughter of a railroad tycoon, and has a fondness for the eccentric, strange, and unfortunate. She was drawn to the tragic nature of Janelle, a widow with no friends, desperate to find community. Hilda was willing to be that for her, be exactly what she needed, be a savior. Hilda likes the feeling of being helpful and in the right. She would listen to Janelle ramble and would help her, taking pride in her own goodness. After a year in Janelle's company, however, she started to grow weaker and weaker. An unexplainable sickness had come over her. Her father tried every possible treatment, but nothing seemed to work. Noticing this, Hilda took matters into her own hands. She had an old family friend who fancied himself a most curious vehicle, and she just so happened to get word of him being back in town. If anyone could parade her around in search of a cure, it would be him. Janelle, terrified of the idea of once more being left alone, begged Hilda to let her accompany her, and Hilda agreed. Dale was born in China as the son of a merchant. At the age of 28, he immigrated to California during the end of the gold rush, and ended up getting a job within the railroad industry. This is where he met Hilda. As a merchant's son, he knew his way around transportation, and became enchanted with the concept of steam engines. And he did manage to stumble upon some gold. It wasn't much, it didn't make him rich, but it allowed him to quit the railway business and take to the roads instead. So he upgraded his wagon to fit his vision and took off. He spent a good few years collecting various bugs, turning his wagon into a traveling museum where he held viewings and lectures about the different species. Dale eventually ended up back in his old town, where he met his 3 new surprise passengers. Hilda, Hilda's friend, and Dale's own old situationship. Joy was born into a merchant family as well, in India. At the age of 20, she accompanied her parents on a business trip to China. There, she met Dale. While their parents worked out business transactions, Dale showed her the garden, and the two bonded. Stayed in China for about a month. Dale proposed, but Joy refused, then returned home and broke contact. At the age of 22, Joy moved with her family to England, and at the age of 37, she moved on her own to America. Without much of a plan, she ends up in California, in a small tavern. She cheats out Hilda in poker the night before her leaving, and overhears her conversation with Janelle. The quest for an elusive cure deeply interests Joy, and she decides that is something she simply must be a part of. As leverage, she steals Hilda's prized bookmark, agreeing to only return it if she is able to come along. Janelle knowing Hilda's condition is only going to worsen, happily supports the idea of acquiring a new companion. The three of them then head out to demand Dale's help. He was, however, quick to recognize Joy. He asked her why and how she was there, to which she had no good answer. He then asked why she had stopped writing. She didn't have a good answer to that either. Dale then agreed to help his friend, but under one condition. Joy could not accompany them. Joy agreed. This was a bad idea. Janelle, however, persisted, and eventually they both caved. Joy far quicker than Dale. And toward Death Valley they went. Then shenanigans ensue. Will they ever find a cure for Hilda? Will Janelle's curse be revealed? Resolved? Will Joy and Dale make up? I don't know. Let me know what you think of them and where you take the story. I'd love to hear your opinions. Unfortunately, this is all I have time for right now because I'm like really late to my haircut appointment. Hold on, this would just take a moment. I just gotta go. I'll be back. Stay there. Yeah. Much better. With that out of the way, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was fun to try something new. I have plans to do more stuff like this and finish it sooner this time. So if that sounds appealing to you, I would recommend subscribing. That way I know y'all are interested and you'll get the next video straight on your feed as it drops. It's a win-win. Bye. I'll see you next time.